I'm going to be introducing LaTeX. LaTeX is a program for typesetting documents, particularly mathematics. So you can see on the left side of the screen here, I have the code of a LaTeX document. I'm going to hit the green compile button here and show you what it looks like. So over on the right, we have our document. So here it is as one page. I'm going to use the magnifying glass. You can see we've got some really nicely formatted mathematics up there at the top. Okay, so that's just the introduction. I'm going to show you next where I got this program. So you can go to this website, tug.org, and this is TexWorks. It's free to download for any operating system, Linux, Mac, PC. Very useful piece of software. And now I'm going to show you some other things that you can do in LaTeX. So first thing I want to talk about is the different parts of a document. So every LaTeX document is going to begin with \document class. And then we're going to have in curly braces the type of document you want to create. Here we're just going to create an article. Article is the most common form of document that I use. So then we have a header section, and we'll see more about this section later. And then we have \begin, and then the argument document. We have some text here, and then far below that we have \end document. And so this is where the main content of your file goes. Things written in here will show up when you compile. So I'm going to hit the compile button again, and you'll see that. Also note how these words, document class, begin and end, are on separate lines, but when I compile, they'll all show up on the same line. We'll talk a little bit more about managing whitespace in a moment. All right, so here you go. So the next thing I want to talk about is titles. So in the header section, so before begin document, after document class, you can put in title, author, and date, which will be compiled together with make title. So \title, and then we put in the title that we want to use, \author, put in the author, \date, put in a date. Then inside, so between the begin document and the end document, put \make title, and then compile that. All right, so center that on the page. And we have a nicely formatted title on our page. So the next thing I want to talk about is comments. So comments are when you want to write a note that only shows up in the LaTeX code. It doesn't show up when you compile. So I said before that anything between the begin document and the end document will show up when you compile. Comments are the exception. So here I have a word uncommented. And then here I began my line with %, and then wrote commented. This is how to write a comment. So I hit compile, and only the word uncommented shows up, nothing else. So that can be useful when you want to make some notes about LaTeX or some code that you wrote, so you can remind yourself how to do it later or what you were trying to do, or you just want to take something out briefly and compile without it. So next thing I'm going to talk about is font size. So again, inside the begin document, I have a comment here, it says font size, and then it uses these words such as tiny, normal size, and huge. You can also look up how to make the font a particular point value, like 12-point font, but this is the most common way to do the font. So \tiny, all the text after tiny will be tiny until you change the font size, so I have tiny example text. \normal size for some larger text, and then \huge for some even larger text. And I'll compile that to show you what it looks like. All right, there we go. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is sections and subsections. So these are nice ways to divide up a paper that you're going to make. If you're going to write a report, you might want an abstract section, introduction section, materials and procedures, things like that. So I have first just section and subsections written in plain text. Then I have \section, curly brace, and then the name of the section that I want. I have it labeled as first section. If I don't want a number to show up with the section, like I don't want it to be section number 1, I just want it to be bold and as large as the section title, I put \section and then an asterisk, and then curly braces, section not numbered. You can also do subsections. Again, it's just \subsection, and then here I just put in the word subsection. And you can do subsections. So here I have, let me adjust that to make that a subsection. Then I'll compile it. So here we go. So here's my plain text at the top. I have the first section, it gets numbered with a 1. The next section is not numbered because I use the asterisk. I have a subsection. Now it cues off of the previous numbered section, so I have 1.1 here. If I'd made another section, \section, it would be 2, and then this would be 2.1, and then 2.11 for the subsection. Okay, now here I'm going to talk about Whitespace. So first we're going to look at an example. All right, so here I've got a huge paragraph of text. You'll notice that it's indented. Let's zoom out and see the whole page. So you see how big the margins are. You see that there's not really a space between the paragraphs, so this line of text just goes right on to the next paragraph. There's a small indent there. I'm going to show you an alternative to that. So minimize this. So now here, I have the same things, but I've got some code in my header. And I'm going to execute it and show you what it looks like before I talk about what it does. So I hit execute. Now here what I've done is I've moved the margins out, I've moved the margins up, and I've put a proper blank line between the paragraphs. So I have a bigger line between the paragraphs here. I'll show you how I did that. So the first thing I did, now this is in document class article. This is before begin document. That's very important. First thing is \parskip or paragraph skip, and then a blank space, and then you can put the font or the number of points that you want for a skip between paragraphs. So here I have 5.2. Paragraph indent, whether or not you want any indentation, you set the number of points, so blank space and then 0 point. Notice we're not using curly braces for this the way we were for a lot of our other arguments. So notice here there's no indentation at the beginning of the paragraph. And I have some comments about this as well. Remember, the comments have no effect. But here I'm using comments in the header as opposed to the body, the begin document area. You can also use comments up there. This next code is where I widen the margins and the text height. So the first thing I do is I say \add to length. So I increase the height of the document on the page. And I tell it I want to do this on the, no, I'm sorry, this is the side-to-side length. This is not the vertical length. So then I say on the odd side margin, so on the first margin, I want to put it out negative 0.875 inches. I do the negative because I'm moving to the left, 0.875 inches. And you can also use centimeters in here. And then I add to the length, and I say I want to do this on the even side margin, so to the right. I do negative 0.875 inches there as well. So then I add the length and I say the total text width has been increased by 1.75 inches. And so you can take this code, copy it into your document, change the numbers around here and get the margins that you would like as well. I like to use these when I'm trying to print something off just to save space on the paper, try and fit things on fewer pages. Then add to length, and you can specify \top margin within the first set of curly braces. Here I have negative ½ inch, and then add to length text height, and I increase that by 1.75 inches. Again, you can copy this text in and modify it how you like. So then down here, I have the same block of text as before. So just this huge copy-pasted example text. Now let me change this really quick, and I'll show you the effects it has. So I'll change the 5 to 20, make a big change there. I will comment out the paragraph indent, so it'll start to indent again. And how about we just comment these out for now to show the difference. And then I'll compile. All right, so now we've got an even bigger space between our paragraphs. You'll notice that we're indenting again, and the margins have shrunk down on both the top and the sides. And it will have shrunk on the bottom, I just didn't make the text long enough to see that. Okay, moving on. Let's get rid of this as well. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about how to format your white space. So here, I'm going to introduce \vertical space and \h space. V for vertical, H for horizontal. So I just titled this Keep Your Distance. So first I have \vertical space, and then in curly braces, I give the argument. And here I'm using centimeters. So notice before I used inches, now I'm using centimeters. You can use both, either way. And I'm going to create 1 centimeter of vertical space between the word keep your distance and 3 centimeters to be precise. Also, I have stay 5 centimeters to my right. And between that, I have \h space and the argument 5 centimeters. So let's see what that looks like. So keep your distance, and then this height here, 3 centimeters on the paper. And then stay 5 centimeters, and if I scroll to the right, you'll see 5 centimeters to the right, to my right. These are really useful commands, very easy to use to space things out in your document. But sometimes we just want simple line breaks. We don't have to write a command every time we want some basic line breaks. So let's see what I've got here. So I kept in the paragraph indent 0 because that's what I prefer for these. That's in the header. But inside begin document, I'm going to show you some different ways to make line breaks. So first I have the sentence, a single line break between this and the next, and then double backslash. And then on the very next line, I have some text here. This is going to create 1 line break between these 2 texts. Also, you could just do a double space. So if I had these 2 on the same line, and then I pressed enter twice, I would have what looks like in the tech code 1 line between these. Now, no matter how many lines you use, so here I just use 1 line between. Here I have, I don't know, 6 or 7 lines between this text and this next text. There's only going to be a single line break between this line and this line. Let's look at that, and then I'll talk the rest of it after I compile once. All right, so you see the first 4 lines here all have just 1 line break between them. And then we have 2, and then 2 again. So let's see what that looks like. So here I got 2 line breaks, despite this line being right next to this line, with double backslash, space, backslash, space, double backslash. Now remember, before I did just a double backslash for 1 space, but if I combine that with a blank space in the code, then I also get 2 line breaks there. So both of these will have 2 line breaks after them. And then I do this command, \clear page. So this just starts a new page from wherever I left off. And then on the very next page I have this, and I'll tell you about the code in just a second, and then I have some centered text. I bet you can guess what that does. So I'll compile it again. So again up here, we have the 4 lines with just 1 line between them, 2 lines with 2 lines between them, and we did that in 2 different ways, using lots of backslashes, or double backslash and then a space. And then we go to the next page, and we have our centered text. And if I look at the full page view, you'll notice it's right in the center. I get that by \begin, curly bracket, the word center, and then I put the text, \end, curly braces, center. So this is similar to the way we were doing the beginning of the document and the ending of the document. You'll see a lot of commands like this. All right, coming up next, we're going to look at, the main thing LaTeX is used for. Let's look at some math. So I'm going to compile this first and show you some of the things LaTeX can do before I talk about what I did on this page. So I hit compile. Up here at the top, I've got math on the same line as some text. So I've got a limit where x goes to infinity, and then a quotient on the right of that limit. Now here, I've got math centered and large and on its own line after the text. I've got the same limit. It's formatted slightly differently and it's larger. You'll notice in the code, though, that the text is exactly the same between the first line and the second here, except for one thing, and that is the $signs. Oh, also I've got some vertical space between these just to spread them out a little bit. So up on the first line, I have a single $sign. I've got my code that generates the math. And then I have a single $sign to end math mode. So $sign is how you tell LaTeX either you're in math mode or not math mode. So start or end math mode. And then below, I start math mode with a double $sign. Single $sign means stay in line with the other text near me. Double $sign says make this centered, larger, and on its own line. I'm not going to go into the math itself, the limit and the fractions. I think that's fairly easy to learn, and you can look up that online at any time. But there's some really useful stuff that you can do in LaTeX with math. I think that might be, nope, not quite all I've got. Yeah, okay. You might want to insert an image into your document. So let's see what this looks like before I talk about the code here. Okay, so I've inserted the count into my document. Got some text below it, so images and text can go side by side, no problem. Let's look at how I did this. So, after document class in the header, before begin document, I have this new command, use package, \use package, and then I have an argument. And I've given the argument graphics. So, packages are the way you get additional code that you might want for LaTeX. So here I'm going to use the graphics package to add this image to my document. I wouldn't be able to use this command, include graphics, without importing this package up in the header. So now in begin document, I do \include graphics. With square brackets, I can set the scale equals 0.3. So I'm actually shrinking this image down from its original size. And then I do a curly brace, and I set the path to the image. So here it's just images / the count sesamestreet.jpg. And this is in the exact same folder as this LaTeX document that I'm editing. Or rather, the images folder is in the same folder. Obviously the count is in a subfolder named images. And then I note here, LaTeX doesn't like GIFs. So use JPEG, PNG, PDF even, you can insert into PDFs that you're making. Which reminds me, every time I compile this, what I'm looking at is a PDF. You can go up here and File and Print PDF. You can also make lists in LaTeX. This is useful. So here I've got a numbered list to start off with, 1, 2, 3, and then I've got a bulleted list. You'll notice that the bulleted list has some math embedded in it. That's no problem for LaTeX. It treats the text the same as the mathematics. And the way we do that is we do a /begin. So like begin document, like the way we did begin centering. But here we do /begin enumerate if you want a numbered list. And down here I have the bulleted list. I do /begin itemize. And then for each item that you either want numbered or bulleted, you do \item, and then you put your text in. So I've just got some regular text here, and here, and here. Now I've used the command \l dots, and that'll give you the ... the 3 dots in a row there. You can also, of course, type them out. And then, like I said before, \begin itemize for a bulleted list. It's right down here. And I've got some math. I've got an integral as the third item, and LaTeX understands what I mean by that and creates it just the way I want. Okay, lastly, creating tables. I'll show you what this looks like before I talk through the code. So I've got a nice table. It kind of looks like it has a header. I've got a mixture of numbers and text inside, and I've labeled the columns. So here's what the code looks like. I've got a comment to begin with. I'm creating a 3-column table with 4 rows. I say \begin again, and then I give the argument tabular. And then I have another set of curly braces, and here's where I format the columns. So C for column, and then I use a vertical bar, the pipe symbol on the keyboard, if I want to put vertical lines between my columns. So for example, if I deleted the first and last pipe symbols from there and ran it again, now my table sort of has no walls on the side. And you can also delete the ones in the middle just as easily. And you can add columns the same way, just add a pipe, space, and then the letter C. So let's look at the table itself. Inside, I have some new code we haven't seen before. H-line, \H-line, is just a horizontal line. So that's how I get the top, and then sort of how I denote the header, and then I've got a horizontal line on the bottom of the table. You'll notice the other horizontal line here. And then I separate each column with an ampersand. So I wrote in column 1, column 2, I separate those with ampersands, and then when I'm at the end of the line, I do double backslash. So double backslash again to make a new line, just like in plain text. And I can also put in numbers, I can put in math mode, anything you want can go into a table. It's a bit difficult to have subtables, but there are extra LaTeX packages that let you do that. You can look that up and figure it out. So I believe that's all I have. That's all I have for my introduction for LaTeX. I hope that was useful.